Hello and welcome to Economics, Unit 4, pages 29 through 30. Alright, not skipping anything, let's go. I want to make this another short one. Money supply and the economy. Yes, more about the money supply. So, we talked a little bit about what the Fed does. Now, there's two different attitudes that they can have towards the money supply. One is a loose money supply. That means, because again, the Fed controls the cost of credit, so they can make credit cheaper. Now, this will make borrowing more easier because it's cheaper. Consumers tend to buy more because they can get loans at cheaper rates, so it makes more sense for them to take out loans to buy things like various durable goods, cars, homes. More people tend to be employed because businesses can now are now less afraid to expand because if they need to take a loan, it won't be so expensive. And just there's generally more spending. However, if credit becomes too cheap for too long, that can cause inflation, and that's a big risk. That means your money starts to actually lose its purchasing power and becomes less valuable. Now, the other side of the coin is a tight money policy. That means that when the Fed employs a tight money policy, they're making credit more expensive. They're raising those interest rates. That makes borrowing more difficult. Consumers will tend to buy less. Businesses are going to expand later on rather than right now because, again, they need financing to do a lot of those bigger expansions. Unemployment can increase. And overall production can be reduced. If it goes on for too long, it can lead to a recession because businesses will start to fail. They might think like, well, why ever do tight money policy? Well, because inflation. Inflation can also cause all those things in the orange downward arrow. So you have to balance between the two. You can't just keep it loose, cheap credit all the time. You have to increase credit. The Fed has to increase credit cost gradually over time. But it's a balancing act. Too high, we can get a recession. Too low, we can have inflation, which also can lead to some pretty bad economic situations. So that's the balancing between the two. You very rarely will have a Fed that'll just do all one or the other. It's balancing between the two. Fractional reserve banking. I mentioned this a little bit in my last video. There's two components of fractional reserve banking. This is the safety net because once upon a time, banks weren't required to keep cash on hand. So when you put money in a bank, that bank then uses a lot of that money to invest and make money. That's right. They're using your money to make money for themselves. Now, the problem is that, again, once upon a time, going back earlier 20th century, they didn't have to keep anything in reserve if they didn't want to. Good banks always would, but many banks that weren't so good and were more risky with the investments of the money people were giving them, when people wanted to get that money, they may not have it, and then they've been essentially robbed, those people. And then that bank might close down, and they might lose even more money, which means even more people can't get money back, and you can have a major collapse, which is what happened in our past, in the Great Depression. So there's a reserve requirement, a minimum amount of money that all banks have to have on hand at all times so that they'll never be able to say to a customer trying to get some access to their checking account, their saving account, oh, sorry, we spent it all. No, they have to have enough to make sure that maintain day-to-day business. And then the rest, that's non-required reserves, they can invest that. They can loan it out to people. So when you get a loan from a bank, technically that's money they got from someone else that they're now loaning to you to make profit through the interest. And this is the reason why currency, true currency, cash and bills and coins, is only a small portion of the money supply. Because let's say you deposit $1,000 into the bank. If the current reserve requirement is 10%, that means the bank has to take 100 of that and leave it there. They can't touch it. But the other 900, they can do what they want. So they can take that 900 and then spend it on something or invest it or maybe loan it to someone else. Well, what if someone else puts that $900 into the bank? Well, reserve means the bank has to keep that 90, but that 810 can go back out. Now that bank is now put into people's hands a total of $2,710 because they're putting money into the system that and only keeping some of it behind. That money then can go out and be spent in the economy and then be put back into a bank again, because again, that's where everyone keeps their keeps their money, and it can keep cycling and through, and that's how money supply can grow, just through day-to-day bank operations of people putting their money in the bank, and then that bank using that money to invest and spend and make loans. And they can increase how much money's out there, even though actual bills and coins are not being produced. That was a lot to take in. That's why I kept that video short. I'm sure you're going to have plenty of questions on this. Don't forget the quiz. The video assignment is, the next video assignment is Econ Unit 4, pages 32 to 33. Thank you. See you next time.